Hey guys, if you're wanting to get started with Pocketbase in 2025, you've made the right choice. Honestly, it's the best backend for any app that is below 10,000 active users. And I can justify that by saying that it used to take me a huge amount of time to build out a backend, anywhere from 1 week to 1 month to now it only takes me I guess it only takes me a day to build it out because it's very, very simple with Pocketbase. A lot of the complexity that would normally be seen in a normal backend or manual backend build, you've got a lot of that abstracted away from you. Things like real time, things like authentication, things like file storage, and you've also got a beautiful admin dashboard to tie all of it in. There's a lot of things which have been considered. If you're building a SaaS, particularly a SaaS in a certain niche where you've got sort of that nice, I guess, 50 to 100,000 users, this is where I would be thinking Pocketbase would be the right one for you. Now, without further ado, I'll just get into sort of the basics of what I think needs to be covered. We're not going to go too deep into any particular topic, but this will help uh, hopefully anyone who needs to expand their learning to focus where they need to actually learn, and also to showcase the capabilities of Pocketbase. So Pocketbase is accessible via pocketbase.io, and then by the GitHub as well. So Pocketbase.io is the website for everything Pocketbase. You've got the documentation here, which is going to be your guide to getting started. And you've also got your releases on the GitHub, which is where you can actually download Pocketbase. So for those of you who don't know, Pocketbase is an executable that is just one file really, and you just run it as an executable, and you're able to um, it will spin up a backend with SQLite as its primary database, and it's just an embedded database, so it's just one file. And what uh, what the advantage of that is less complexity. So, and this is where I think a lot of users or a lot of developers have gotten quite confused over the years. Is that a back end, you've got a lot of different technologies that you've got to spin up, a lot of different environments you've got to make. Pocketbase tries to make this more simple by just making it just one single file. And I guess we can just jump right into it and see how we can build it. So if we just go to Mac OS 64, and then we just download the Darwin ARM64 here. If you're on the Intel builds, it'll be AMD 64. And then this will download this here. And then we can open this one up here. And you can see we've just got this Pocketbase here. That's what I'm talking about. It's just one single executable. If you first open it on Mac, you'll get this cannot be opened because it's from an unidentified developer, but you can open with iTerminal, and it will ask you if you want to open it, and then you can then open and run it. So once we run it, so if I just go to iTerminal again here, and then cd into my downloads, then run cd into Pocketbase, then run Pocketbase serve, we get brought into our admin terminal, and we can just jump into this, and we get all of this out of the box to begin with. Now in here, I've got, if we open up Finder again, sorry, you can see we've got this PB data, which contains all of our database files as well as a storage folder, which would be used for our file storage. And it's as simple as that. You've already got access to create new users. You've got an API preview, which you can use to go and make your own records, as well as view your own records and do all of your CRUD operations. You've got the real-time API, which allows you to subscribe to changes to a collection. So you could say, if you wanted to subscribe on a front end to a user being created or to a user being updated, you could do that, and you'd be able to see when actions occur to different users on the front end. I did a video on real time and how that can work and exactly what that looks like. So if you are interested in that, I recommend checking that out. I'll leave a link in the description below. As of Pocketbase 23, version 23, 0.23, we've now got batch create, which is for if you're doing big bulk updates. You can now in Pocketbase do bulk updates through the batch API. I haven't done a video on this, but I am probably likely to do one. And this is really powerful for being able to create multiple different files and multiple different updates and records. Furthermore, in Pocketbase, we get access to in user collections. We've got options for being able to run OAuth 2 with different providers. We've got access to, I think it's over 20 providers here, which is really cool. And you can also add in your own via OpenID Connect. We've also got access to create one-time passwords and multi-factor authentication. You can create your own tokens in here, which allows you to create the duration for the lifetime of the tokens. So Pocketbase uses JSON web tokens in order to be able to do the authentication. Again, this is saving you a huge amount of time. If you wanted to build this out manually, this feature could take a couple of days potentially, just for auth, and you have to consider a lot of different things. If you're rolling your own auth, that's one incredibly dangerous, because if you've got a security bug in that, you're pretty much screwed. But two, also just it can take just an exorbitant amount of time just to pull it all together. Another critical thing in Pocketbase is the API rules. So the way that API rules work is you've got your requests, which are the objects which are received by authenticating with Pocketbase. And in this case, you can check what users being authenticated and make sure that it maps to the specific user, so that only users can see their own data. So that's what these rules are doing here. So it's basically saying here, these are just simple rules with syntax like so, to be able to limit the amount of records that are visible when searching a different collection. So in this case, we have ID, which is our user ID, which is the unique identifier for the user. And whenever a request is made to this collection, if the request has ID at the end of it, and the ID matches the ID in here, then that user can be listed, and the same thing for the user being viewed, updated, and deleted. And of course, no one is able to create any records at all, which basically locks it down. Now, I suppose collections are really the bedrock of Pocketbase. So the way that we create a new collection is we click this plus, and it will enable us to create a new collection. We can just call this test. You've got different types here. You've got a view collection and an auth collection. Auth collections are like those user collections that I just showed you earlier, and I'm not sure what you would create another user collection for. Maybe if you had a different class of users that you wanted to run on the system. This is where you could create a separate collection for that. But you've also got your view collections, and view collections are collections that allow you to basically run direct SQL queries so that you can display a certain subset of information. So if you wanted to connect a bunch of tables and display data or a very specific set of data from them, you can do that. When would be the time to do that? Normally when you only want to display certain information and you don't want to do it on the front end with a join, this is where you're able to do this on the back end and read it into your front end. This can save you a little bit of performance on your front end, and also allows you to manipulate data using direct SQL, which is not something you can do on a Pocketbase on the Pocketbase client side. So yeah, and then if you wanted to run these auth collections, you've got these auth collections here, which bring in these standard things and allow you to do things like one-time passwords and all the rest of that. But we'll just create a base collection for now. And with base collections, we've got these different fields. We've got plain text field, we've got rich editor fields, which just beneath the hood are basically just HTML. So we'll just put rich text there, and then you've got number, bool, which is pretty self-explanatory, email, which is just a text field with special validation rules, URL, same thing, text field with special validation rules, date time, normal date, auto date, which is just whenever it's created, a select field, which is like you can add in different options for what you want this field to be. So test 1, these can be the only possible values in this field. And then you've got your file field, which allows you to upload files. And I'll show you something here. When we create a file, what happens. And you've got relation fields, so we can tie this field to the users field. So any ID that we enter in here will map directly to a user's in our user collection. And then we've got a JSON object, which can literally just be a dump of any sort of JSON object. If we create this and then we map to a user, we've got no user record here. I wonder if we can create one real quick. Yeah. So we'll just create this. Create that, and then set selection to Sam, and then upload a file. And then I'll show you exactly how the rich text looks. This rich text is really good if you're wanting to bring this into your website as text. I'd recommend that you look at, if you're using Tailwind, use Tailwind Pros, because Tailwind Pros is very, very good for being able to do stuff like this. Tailwind typography allows you to essentially map Tailwind classes to semantic elements. So in this case, H1P P tags. And yeah, you can basically get a full blog structure CSS directly from that. In other CSS libraries, I'm not sure how you do that, but I'm sure that it's easy. But yeah, you can just create code examples all sorts of things. But you can see that in the actual source code, you've got your H1 tag here. So that really covers the basics of being able to create collections. If we wanted to create just a record here, we add in this, put in test here, and then we create a record. We can see that in our actual data here under storage, if we expand this, we've got our PNG, which we've just set up and added onto Pocketbase. And this is how all files are actually going to be stored in Pocketbase, which is good to know. So that's basically the fundamentals of collections and records. Now I wanted to look at if things aren't going right, what do you do? And things normally don't go right in the logs. This is where a lot of your uh, collections will be logged whenever an action occurs on a collection. You'll see a log, either an info or an error or a warning appear here. You've got IP logging here, so you can see what IP is logged what. You're also able to look at auth logging as well for specific user IDs. You've got retention logs as well as min log levels. One thing to note is if you're using the logs um, on an extension, which is something we'll get into in a moment, you'll need to set your log level to -4 to include debug logs. This is just something for when you're building out extensions that's kind of important, but we'll just cancel that for now. You can see we've already got some IPs and things like that in here. Now into the settings, there's some really important things which are critical for production. Using proxies is really helpful for if you're using a gateway in front of your application, and want to be able to proxy the connections through it. Using rate limiting is a brand new thing in Pocketbase since November, which allows you to limit the amount of requests that are callable on Pocketbase. This is pretty crucial for when you get into production, because you don't want anyone to be particularly spamming your connection. And then you've also got the batch API, which is what we showcased in these collections here, where you've got this batching here, where you're allowed to make multiple changes to a record. This is where you're able to determine the amount of batches that are allowed to be processed at any given time. You've got your mail settings. Now, Pocketbase gives you some default mail things that you can do out of the box, such as you're able to set up automatic emails for when users are created, and for when passwords are reset, which I'll showcase in here if we go to our user record here. I think, yeah, we've got the send password reset email. So to actually make sure that that's set up in a supportable way, we've got to use an SMTP mail server. If we don't use an SMTP mail server, it probably won't work. The email will be sent in a unsecure way that will probably be blocked by whatever provider you're using. So using an SMTP mail server, what I particularly use is I use AWS SES, which is a simple mail provider, and it's very cheap, and it's pretty rock solid. But you might want to use MailerGun or MailSend or one of those other mail providers in order to set up your mail server. Um, Under file storage, you can use S3 storage. So this is any S3 compatible storage. So you can use AWS S3, which is what I would recommend, or something else which uses an S3 connector. Um, You've also got your backups, which allow you to, so you can do a backup directly into Pocketbase itself, or you can do a backup directly to S3, which is where that file storage options come in. So yeah, you can store backup in S3, and you can also enable auto backups. We'll just enable auto backups to see how we can set it up. We've got our cron expressions here, which is like how we would want the backups to be done. We can have it every day at midnight and up to 3. Then we can set those changes there, and it'll set itself up to do a backup. And we can initialize a new backup as well, and we can start a backup here. We can see that we've got this backup for our new Pocketbase app. So fairly straightforward. If we wanted to restore, we can hit the restore. If we want to delete, we can delete, and we can download. If we go to our crons, this is also another new area of Pocketbase, but your crons are basically the jobs that are set up to be running on a time schedule in Pocketbase. These are the internal cron jobs that are run for optimizing the database, MFA cleanup, OTP cleanup, log cleanup, and auto backup. But yeah, I think this auto backup one is actually just the one we just created just then. So if we go back to here and we go to backup options and delete auto backup, and we go to crons, we can see that that one's gone. But you'd want to see, you'd be seeing a lot of your cron jobs from your extensions as well in here. So you want to make sure that if you've got extensions set up with cron jobs, that yeah, they're appearing in here, and you can also run your cron jobs manually. So that's that. Now into the way that you transfer connections between, or transfer collections between different Pocketbase instances. I always like to use this export collections to be able to, if I'm sort of running a test environment, you can download all of the JSON for your collections and then import them. This is great for, like I said, just building out test environments where you may not want, you may want the same settings that you've got in production, but you may not want to go and build them all out manually. Yeah, it also works for transferring data between two separate instances, because you can build the collections and then build the scripts to go and transfer all the data. So that's pretty much everything that there is to learn in Pocketbase. It's very simple. You're basically just building a database that allows you to do CRUD operations. Now, I think that where people sort of get stuck, or people say, oh, Pocketbase is not for me, or SQLite is terrible, I think that's these sorts of things happen when people start looking at extending and moving outside of what Pocketbase's core capabilities are. And I think that that you could argue that, but I really, really also like actually extending Pocketbase and pushing it and seeing what can be done with it. And I'm going to go to pocketbase.io and show you under the documentation where you're going to really be thriving. So everything that I've covered here is really all available in these documentation here. If you do get stuck, please go through and run through the documentation here. But we're going to take a look now at extending with JavaScript. So this is arguably the coolest thing about Pocketbase, is that you are able to use this single file, but you're also able to extend on top of it and create new functionality. So all of Pocketbase's routes are basically contained under two routes. You've got this underscore route here, which is this slash underscore slash, which is all of the stuff which is used for this admin portal that we're looking at here. And then you've also got here, which is slash API collections. And these are all used for your CRUD operations. This is used for your REST API that you've got here to be able to do the updates or the CRUD operations on your different collections. But you're also able to create your own routes and interact with the database directly as part of that. So to do that, we have these things called hooks. Now, I'm going to do a separate video on hooks and why they're important and how to do them properly. But I wanted to use this video to just showcase just a little bit about how you can use hooks. So hooks are essentially, there's two ways of extending in Pocketbase. You can either use Go or you can use JavaScript. Now, hooks are the JavaScript way of doing it. If we want to extend, we first need to create a new folder. And I'll just move this into my Pocketbase folder here. And then we go pb_hooks. And this has got to be in the same folder as your Pocketbase executable. And then we jump into here. And I think I need to create a new window because I'm so used to doing things through the terminal. I've never done this through there. Anyways, if we go to downloads, cd pb_hooks, and then we create a new file. We'll call this main.pb.js, and this appears in there. And this main.pb.js will just open with cursor. And this is going to be the file that we use for creating our hooks, and we can create separate routes here. So in this case, they give us, the first thing that they give us as part of the JavaScript extend is we get this hello here, which we can run. So if we go to, we've got our Pocketbase instance set up here, and we take a look at this new route that we've added in here, which is hello. And then we add in Sam. It doesn't start. And that is because we need to restart the Pocketbase here. And then we can see that we get that. And this extension here is basically allowing you to extend on Pocketbase to have your own backend. Some examples of how I've used these hook extensions is to create payment platforms. It's to also create custom functionality. Like I had a problem where I was looking at GeoJSON and basically connecting different records with particular locations and then searching those records based on location, like geospatial location. That's where I had to break into using custom routes and create my own custom search for finding those records. So it's this is a useful tool for being able to do that. I'm going to do a separate video, like I said, on all of that and how to really utilize that. I guess while we're on the subject of payments, there's two libraries which I would recommend, which yes, they are mine, but I would recommend that you look at them for if you're going to create payments in Pocketbase. You've got Stripe Pocketbase, which is this one here, which allows you to basically go and build everything that you need out in Pocketbase. This is based on a Vercel example, which was adapted from Supabase. And if you want a different provider like Lemon Squeezy, which is also owned by Pocketbase but does some uh, lemon squeezy Pocketbase. It's this one here. Nice. Pocketbase lemon squeezy, yeah. Same sort of stuff. So you can go and build out with this, and everything's um, similar between the two collections. You just between the two payment providers. The only thing is that for Lemon Squeezy, you um, just want to run a synchronization function for some of your products in Lemon Squeezy because it's just not provided. So yeah, and these things are just extension files. So you can see you've just got the main pb.js. You've got an extension file with a couple of routes in there. But this is a feature which would probably take you weeks to build, but you can just do it in Pocketbase very, very easily just by creating one of these hook files and then just running it. It might take you a day to get set up if you're not familiar with how both of these payment providers work, but really, really straightforward in terms of getting started with it. The other thing that I wanted to cover, which is going to be really critical for a lot of people, is like the scalability of Pocketbase as a whole. So SQLite is a small database. It is the most widely used database ever in history. I think that I read an article where it suggested that there could be potentially billions of instances actively running right now. So SQLite is really rock solid. I also think Pocketbase is really rock solid. Looking through the code, I believe that the code is very clean. I believe that it's pretty bug free. I think that there hasn't actually been a time where I've encountered a bug in Pocketbase where it's been Pocketbase's fault. Um, the the thing I would say, things get crazy at scale, and that's why there's specific limits which have been suggested by Garni, who is the creator of Pocketbase. Particularly, he says that if you're having connections above sort of 10,000 active users to real time, that may not be supported, but certainly below that's supported. Garni also mentions that he wouldn't recommend that you use Pocketbase for production. That's where I would disagree with Garni, and I have disagreed with him because I think that, and I have used Pocketbase in production, and it's worked really, really well for me. I think that my user bases are quite small and the targets are quite specific for what needs to be achieved with my user base. So that's where I have utilized Pocketbase the most. If you're wanting to build for scale, you really need to think about how you're building, and why you're building for scale. Because if you're thinking that your app's going to be scaling to 1 billion users to begin with, it's very rare that this happens. And it's really like the only time that you've seen this sort of significant growth to warrant building an app like that would be something like a Chat GPT, where like you've received like 3 million users in a month. But that just very rarely happens, and that's why I also think that if you're thinking about Pocketbase, I think that it's a great um, it's a great tool for building your first SaaS or the first version of your SaaS, because I think that it gives you a lot of simplicity and leaves you to go and actually build your app. Another thing I would mention as well is that if you're wanting to just have Pocketbase as your own, um, as the only thing that your users are connecting to, that's probably not a good idea as well. Cloudflare caching is really important for building web apps. Cloudflare um, caching allows you to store basically store um, responses to your CRUD app. When I was talking with Ben, the creator of Pocket Host, which is a popular host, he mentioned that 50% of his of the calls that are made to his Pocketbase instances are all cached by Cloudflare, and that really helps with managing the amount of requests that you get on Pocketbase. He's getting a lot of requests. He's got over 10,000 users. So his is probably one of the larger Pocketbase apps out there. And yeah, most of the stuff is being cached by Cloudflare. So um, if you're going into production, I recommend that you implement that. In addition, I also think that you should consider Pocketbase if you're wanting to have sovereignty over all your tech stack. The beautiful thing about Pocketbase is that you're able to control all aspects of your app without sacrificing on the complexity of actually having to um, go and build all of those individual features. You're able to still get the best of both worlds, like the best of using hosted services alongside having the ability to control everything to do with your app. And it's just helpful to remember that apps never stay the same, and sometimes you'll be forced to break out of those hosted services anyway. I think the last thing that I wanted to cover was looking at the different hosting platforms. So Pocketbase is hostable anywhere. You can host it in a Docker instance. I have done that, and I've got multiple production sites running in Docker. Pocket Host runs in Docker. I would recommend strongly that you run um, your Pocketbase in Docker. The beautiful thing about running Pocketbase is you've got ample options because it's all Docker images. You can run it in Azure, you can run it in Google Cloud, you can run it anywhere you really like. If you're running it for prototyping, I would recommend that you run it in fly.io. If you're wanting to run it with your own Docker instance, this is the place to do it. And I think that if we go directly to the docs anyways, um, yeah, I think if we go to the docs anyways and we look at going into production, we have a Docker instance here. And Garni recommends using fly.io for deployments as well. I also recommend that you check out Pocket Host, which is just an awesome tool for being able to build out real-time apps. You can go, which is just an awesome tool for being able to prototype quickly. You basically get access to a Pocketbase instance straight out of the box, which you can use for building everything. If you also want, I recommend that you look at the unlimited deal or the Flounders deal, which is pretty awesome. So Pocket Host is what I use in production as well for one of my apps, and I think it's pretty bulletproof. So I really strongly recommend you check it out, guys. If you are using Pocketbase and you are loving it, please put what you love about it in the comments below. I really want to hear from you guys. I think that Pocketbase is an awesome platform, and I want to know if there's anything else that I missed in this walkthrough, and just tell me if there's any SaaS that you're building out with Pocketbase, because I'd love to even showcase what you're building on the channel here. So yeah, thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.